Joining us now to discuss the Celsius hearing further is Sasha Hodder. She's a managing partner at Hodder Law Firm. Hello there, Sasha. So you were also listening in on the bankruptcy hearing of Celsius the other day. Tell me a bit about some of your key points. What jumped out at you?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me today. It was one of the things that jumped out the most was that it seemed the Celsius attorneys are now cooperating more so than they were in the past. I think the threat of getting that examiner, the independent examiner, really kind of kicked things into motion, and the official creditors committee has submitted over 250 requests for various information, and Celsius has responded to almost all of it, or I think they said something like 150 responses have already been provided and the rest are on their way. And it seemed like they had narrowed a lot of issues that were outstanding from the last time. So the various, the trustee, the lawyers for the various creditor groups, and the lawyers for Celsius had agreed on a number of different points. So that was a positive. And then it was also quite a welcome admission by Celsius that at least the custody assets were not part of the bankruptcy, and some of them would be going back. That wasn't resolved the last time. So I think everyone was really relieved to see that Celsius admitting that. But, now they're trying to say, oh, we're going to separate it into these three tranches. And the lawyers for the creditors are saying, no, if that's not part of the bankruptcy, you give that back right now. So that'll have to be decided by the judge on October 6th. And also, Celsius, it's illegal for them to be custodying certain assets in certain states. They have cease and desist orders. So I think that will play a role, too, in them being forced to give that money back.
Sasha, you've been a pretty outspoken critic of Mashinsky. I'm sort of, that's an understatement. Do you think anything changed in his behavior? You think the lawyers got to him and said, look, cut it out? I mean, what's your, look, it's speculation, of course. You weren't in the room, and you're an attorney, and you're probably going to, not say anything too wackadoodle here. But I mean, as an attorney, you're seeing this, and you've seen Mashinsky in the past and how he behaves, and you're seeing what the attorneys are now saying. How would you speculate what would you speculate is going on?
I think the threat of the Department of Justice examiner was, a scary threat, and it forced them into action. Or they just, the OCC hadn't really started their full investigation yet either. So that official creditors committee had only been formed a few weeks ago. So now that they've really kicked into motion, it's changed things for sure in terms of the transparency and the disclosures.
We're also hearing from, the personal side of this, from the depositors themselves. And I wonder if, you could talk a bit about, what they're experiencing. And Daniel Frischberg, who I understand was one of the names mentioned.
Yeah, so Daniel represents himself. He's a young, he looked like he was, in his young 20s. And I thought he did a really great job explaining his case. And, his big argument was partly that he's an unaccredited investor. He should never have been in that EARN program. The risks were not disclosed to him. And now basically he accused Mashinsky of using company money to purchase Mashinsky's own Celsius tokens, and that was, theft and embezzlement. And he was very outspoken that the EARN program should also be returned immediately. But the terms of service were changed after the initial deposits in the EARN program. So that's what's creating some challenge around that, is the terms of service say it's not your keys, it's not your coins.
What do you think of the odds here that you're separating it as we did as when we talked to Nick earlier between the EARN program and the custodial program, which is their key supposedly and their Bitcoin? Do you think that, what are the odds that you would assign to them right now, looking at all this, as who's going to get their money back? Do you think the EARN guys are kind of up a creek?
I do, yeah. There's not enough money to go around. Celsius did miraculously find another 70 million. So their balance sheet, they published a new cash flow statement that shows before it was showing negative 33 million on the Coins report for the end of October. And now they're showing positive 42 million at the end of October. But it's still like just the top 10 creditors here have 183 million outstanding. And, there's 43 million left at the end of next month. So there's just not enough assets to go around. They did agree on selling some de minimis assets. So, and they're exploring other sales like the GK8 business, but I think it's going to be a long time coming for the EARN people, and they're unlikely to get much back.
So is there a sense of like a timeline on when there can be a recovery of funds? Because just from my sense of things, it seemed the judge is in no hurry. I'm sure these depositors, there is an urgency for them to get their money back, but at least on the side of the judge, they're taking their time. Celsius, do they stand to benefit? I imagine they do, of not returning the funds and just kind of prolonging the process for as long as possible.
Yeah, well, the salaries can continue to be paid by certain staff as long as they're in this bankruptcy proceeding as it stands. So there might be an incentive by everyone that's still getting those salaries to keep things going as long as possible. And those salaries right now are being paid pretty much out of the depositors', funds. So if you look at other bankruptcy cases in the crypto world, the Mt. Gox creditors have still not received their money since 2011. And then the recent, well, I guess not that recent, but the Quadriga case was in 2019. And here we are in 2022 and no one's received their money. One of the first requirements is this transparency of the names of the people that are going to receive the money, even out of the custody and withhold accounts. Right now, they want to make sure that those aren't going to insiders of Celsius. The names need to be disclosed because there's that 48 million tranche that is supposedly going to get returned. The judge is saying, well, wait a minute, we got to make sure that's not going to Mashinsky and his wife. Like, who are these people getting this, this 48 million back? So that whole disclosure of the names, certain people are saying if you give the names, the email addresses, and the home addresses, that's likely to create a security risk for the investors that is unfair and unreasonable. And I think the judge is saying, well, we at least need to know the first and last name of each person, and maybe we can seal the other additional information. But that will get decided on the 8th of October or the 6th of October. But there's still a lot of things like that need to come in place before any distributions.
There was also some light shed on some of the mistakes that Celsius had made in terms of a loan to Tether, a Badger DAO, and whether or not they'll be running out of money by October. Could you go over a bit of that?
Yeah, so in the hearing yesterday, there was a discrepancy where Mr. Ortiz, the attorney for the creditors, stated that Celsius had recently just sounded like out of thin air found $70 million to put on their balance sheet. And then the attorney for Celsius, he came on and said, oh no, that was actually a stablecoin loan that was just miscategorized as a coin when really we're receiving it back in cash. So the judge seemed surprised. Everyone's relieved. Okay, that's great that you've got an additional 70 million, or it was 61 million according to the Celsius attorneys. But, how do you misplace that or miscategorize it? That's such a significant sum of money to not know about and not have included previously. But and then, as you mentioned, there was a big loan to Tether that didn't work out. They were taking some risky bets. And that Badger DAO, when that DAO got hacked, Celsius received certain coins that entitled them to receive the funds at a later date. They're remittance coins. And Celsius, there's a big note on the screen saying, don't sell these until whatever that future date was. And someone on Celsius's team apparently clicked through and accepted that risk and sold those. And now Badger DAO is saying, well, we can't reissue them to you. You sold them. So just certain things like that. It sounds like the company really grew too fast. Like they went, they just exploded and it didn't have proper controls in place.
And are they in danger of running out of money by October?
Well, now that they've found this additional, whatever used to be a stable coin, now it's cash, the 61 million, it looks like by the end of November, they're still forecasting that they'll have 42 million available. So it is running out, but it's not running out by October anymore. And I mean, they have set up this mining operations, which, I mean, they're not getting, like, if you look at the energy price that they're getting, I think it's 0.08 per kilowatt hour, where companies like Riot Blockchain are at 0.025 per kilowatt hour. So they're way out of their league in this, but they are mining coins. And if Bitcoin goes from 20,000 to 100,000 this year, and the bankruptcy proceedings, just keep going, maybe it will work out in their favor.